Derby County find themselves with some positive injury news heading into their fixture versus Luton Town. It's going to be very interesting to see which players do make their return over the course of the final 4 games. Now, John Eustace addressed the media a couple of days ago, and I made a full reaction video to that. So if you have not checked that out, make sure you go and check that out before we get into this video, all about the latest injury news for Derby County. Now, obviously, there is some positive news, as I mentioned just a moment ago, with Blackett-Taylor and Ben Osborne returning to training over the course of the last week. Now, obviously, that's very important for Derby County. It adds some versatility into the squad with Ben Osborne, who can play on the left wing back and left back, as well as Blackett-Taylor, who can play across both wings. Now, Ben Osborne can obviously play in midfield as well, so it adds a brilliant option to bring off the bench heading into the final 4 games. Now, ultimately, will they be available to play against Luton Town? I think it'll be very tight, and John Eustace didn't specify that they'd be involved, so I think we need to be very, very careful in what we're expecting from the returns of Blackett-Taylor and Ben Osborne. If you have not done so already, make sure you hit that subscribe button down below to stay tuned for all of my latest Derby County content heading your way across the course of the end of this season and heading into next season, with transfer profiles, news and player reviews all coming your way. Make sure you've got that notification bell on and hit that like button to stay tuned for all the latest. Now, a lot of you will remember that Blackett-Taylor was deregistered from the squad after he got injured. I think it was the back end of January, but he is available to be re-registered, and the EFL will allow that to happen should he be fit enough to play and play a part for Derby County before the season ends. Now, as I mentioned, both have trained with the group across the course of this week. John Eustace is massively excited by the prospect of Blackett-Taylor, who has shown a lot of excitement within training so far this week. Now, obviously, we know what we're going to get from Ben Osborne: versatility and a workhorse. He's going to tackle you, he's going to run his socks off. Is he necessarily the same player he was 5 years ago? Is he good enough? They're all questions that can be asked by many others, but I think a lot of people would have thought that Marcus Harness wasn't good enough a few months ago, and ultimately under John Eustace has gone from strength to strength. Now, there is some conversations regarding the fitness of Sandre Langas. Now, we know that he is set to have surgery when this season ends, which will hopefully solve his injury problems heading into next season. But he is touch and go heading into the Luton Town fixture. At the moment, John Eustace reported that he's very sore and tight after playing 4 games in 10 days, but he will be checked on Thursday heading into that game with Luton Town. And in my opinion, I believe that Sandre Langas will be fit and available and will play on Friday morning, afternoon, whatever you want to call it, with a 12:30 kickoff. And I do believe that Sandre Langas is doing what everybody wants Derby players to do, and that's play through that pain barrier, put performances in, and do your job, essentially, do what you're paid for. Now, obviously, a lot of us will be hoping that Sandre Langas is able to get that surgery and get back up to fitness before the start of next season, but I think we may have to wait a couple of weeks heading into the start of that campaign. Now, there is some news regarding Callum Elder. He is progressing, but is also still struggling a little bit heading into the game versus Luton Town. Obviously picking up that knock versus Preston North End, and has missed every fixture since. Now, John Eustace is hoping to have him back, and was keen to point out the impressive form that he'd been in across the course of the season under John Eustace, and how important he'd been to being creative. And I think he collected 2 assists in a game versus Plymouth Argyle, and he's obviously hoping to have him back at some point, but there's no guarantees that Callum Elder will be available for selection before the season comes to a close. Now, there is some conversations regarding Kmart Roof across the course of Dom Dietrich's Twitter. Dom Dietrich, if you don't know, is the BBC Radio Derby. I think he's the summariser for BBC Radio Derby and the lead presenter for match days, and obviously some of the other Derby County shows that they do. He also gets involved in the Burton Albion stuff as well. And there was some questions left on his Twitter regarding Kmart Roof, and he said that he wasn't mentioned by John Eustace, but obviously it was only a few days ago, maybe last week, when he said that Kmart Roof was still a couple of weeks away. So there's no further update on Kmart Roof, and there's no further confirmation on when we will see him back. He's probably not going to be seen in a Derby County shirt again. One would probably hazard a guess, but hopefully he can sort of get back to normality and maybe back into football for next season. There was also some discussion related to that of Jeff Hendrick and Eric Peters and their lack of minutes, and John Eustace didn't necessarily say that it wasn't fitness related, but did say that they've both been involved in squads, so they're obviously available to play. And it's more of a case of John Eustace hasn't quite seen the right moment to maybe give Jeff Hendrick a debut. Obviously, Eric Peters, it's only been, 2, maybe 3 games since he arrived at the club. So it's all about finding the right time to give them the opportunity. And ultimately, that right time might not come for a Jeff Hendrick. It also might not come for an Eric Peters. It's something we're going to have to see if it comes over the next 4 games. I think maybe if Derby County have survival secured after Monday, which is a possibility, should they win both games and Cardiff were to lose and Luton were to lose and Plymouth were to lose, then Derby County would be could be safe heading into that game with 2 wins. Then I think we could see Jeff Hendrick and Eric Peters take to the field. I think we could see some youngsters as well. But ultimately, we'll have to wait and see what happens with that, because that's all dependent on results. Now, obviously, we all know there's a ton of players that are out for the rest of the season. Ryan Nyambe is one of them, picked up an injury a couple of weeks ago. He'll be out and won't be seen until the start of next campaign. Dejan Brown also out for the rest of the season. Curtis Nelson won't probably be seen until around October, November time. David Ozo will never be seen again in a Derby County shirt unless his deal is renewed on a loan for next season, but I think that will be highly unlikely. Lars Jørgen Selverson also out until the start of next season. Joe Ward also out as well. Now, I do think that some players we will probably never see in a Derby County shirt again. I think the likes of Kmar Roof, I think Joe Ward might be moved on. I think Dejan Brown may end up out on loan next season. And I think there's going to be big question marks over the likes of David Ozo as well, about the potential for him to return next season. Now, obviously for Derby County, the importance of getting someone of Corey Blackett-Taylor and Ben Osborne's quality back. Now, I'm not a lot of people think that I love Ben Osborne, and I'm a big fan of Ben Osborne. I ultimately think that he seems to be a great person. He's a Derby County fan, and I'll always give him the benefit of the doubt, like I do with a lot of players. But I do think that when he does get back and he is involved, I do think that his performances need to be to a much higher standard. I think that he has a lot to offer any club in this division. I think the problem is more about whether he's fit enough to be able to give everything that he can and do that on a consistent basis. And I think that's been the problem this season, where he's not really been able to play 2 games in a week. He's ultimately not really been able to stay fit as well, picking up some really small injuries. And I'm not going to say that it's regarded to the stuff that he's doing off field, but ultimately he has a lot going off pitch, trying to set himself up for when he finishes, and I'm delighted that he's got that going for him. But ultimately we need to see what he can do on the pitch, and that'll obviously help him continue this career for years and years, where running those sorts of businesses is going to be sort of pocket change for him, and it's not really going to be an impact. So hopefully we can see him back at his best in a Derby County shirt at some point over the course of the next 4 games, and obviously then heading into next season. But it will be interesting to see how that does develop. Now, obviously Corey Blackett-Taylor, a lot of Derby fans love him, and I am of the agreement that he is a very good player and never really sort of suited what Paul Warne wanted to do. Now, Paul Warne spent months trying to get this Corey Blackett-Taylor done. We tried it in the January when he first came in. We tried it in the summer heading into the season where we got promoted, and then obviously he signed in that January. But ultimately, Corey Blackett-Taylor was never given the opportunity to really shine and show what he's capable of in a Derby County shirt, in my opinion. And I think heading into whether it be a League One or Championship campaign under John Eustace, I certainly think Corey Blackett-Taylor is going to be a massive, massive player for Derby County. And I think everything that he's done in his career and everything that he's going to do before he retires, I think is going to be massive. And I think John Eustace will be able to maximise him and get everything that he can. You look at the way he dealt with a player like Tyrese Dolan and players like that, and I do think that John Eustace will be able to maximise Corey Blackett-Taylor. And I think whether we're in League One or we're in the Championship, I think he is going to be a massive, massive player for us next season, and maybe could be heading into these final 4 games, but we'll have to wait and see if he's available for this game versus Luton Town. I think it might be a little bit too soon, but we'll have to wait and see. Now, obviously, let me know your thoughts down in the comments. If you have not done so already, make sure you hit that subscribe button and turn on that notification bell to stay tuned for all of your latest Derby County news and content, which is coming on this channel across the course of upcoming campaigns for Derby County. So make sure you've hit that subscribe button, notification bell on, you've hit the like button, and let me know your thoughts down in the comments, and I'll catch you in my next video.